Thanks for joining us here at 11. I'm Jenna Webster in tonight for Scott. We do want to begin with the story of a small Indiana community breaking with a past often defined by prejudice. That's why some say this story needs a new chapter. Tonight, our Logan Gay talked with the woman behind Martinsville's first Juneteenth celebration. So Logan, what'd you learn?
Well, Juneteenth marks the day in 1865 when the last enslaved people in the United States learned they were free. And the organizer for this Martinsville event tells me plans for a small gathering quickly grew once word spread about a week ago. She says the response is a good sign for the future.
Honoring our past, celebrating our freedom, and building our future. That's the message behind Martinsville's first ever Juneteenth celebration. Organizer Janine Lee Fier grew up in Muncie, where Juneteenth has been celebrated for decades. After calling Martinsville home for 6 years, she says it was time to bring that tradition here.
This coming July 4th, Independence Day, we're going to celebrate our nation's 250th anniversary. And that is our shared history, right? Well, so is Juneteenth.
Martinsville has long been known for its painful history as a sundown town. In 1968, 21-year-old Carol Jenkins was stabbed to death while selling encyclopedias. Her murder, a hate crime, and a symbol of the city's troubled past. Janine says she knew that history before moving here, but says her own positive experience has given her hope.
We also need to start thinking about the future and hopefully distancing ourselves from some of those negative things that have happened, and hopefully providing new memories and positive things for this community.
Lady Victory.
Indiana historian Samson Livingston says he also grew up hearing about Martinsville's reputation.
It is one of the places where you might see a KKK flyer or propaganda at the McDonald's. I remember that from high school, driving down to Bloomington.
Now he applauds Janine for bringing the community together and hopes other small towns follow her lead.
But I think everybody's culture and history deserves to be celebrated, especially the Black culture and heritage here in Indiana. And I'm very excited to hear about how it goes.
And Janine hopes the celebration is just the beginning.
It's important that we acknowledge the past, but also move toward a better future for us.
And we reached out to the Martinsville mayor about the celebration, and he says city leaders are committed to making Martinsville a place where people are proud to belong. His statement to 13 News says many who return to Martinsville after a time away are struck by the positive transformation happening across our neighborhoods, our downtown, and our community culture, including events like the one taking place on June 19th. This progress is real and it's ongoing.
All right, Logan, thank you so much. There are some Juneteenth events happening all across Indiana. Here in Indianapolis, there's a run for wellness at the White River State Park. That all starts tomorrow morning at 8. Then at 9, there's a community celebration and Juneteenth Peace March. It starts at Firefighters Union Hall along Mass Ave and ends at MLK Park. Then coming up at 10 o'clock, a celebration of connection at the Idle George Museum. We've got a very extensive list of all these events right now at WTHR.com. Well, it was a bit of a rough go last night, but Rob, we've got the forecast is shaping up to be a little bit better for tomorrow, for Juneteenth.
Yeah, I mean, it looks quite nice. We need some dry time as well to get some of the cleanup underway for some of the storms. But yeah, for tomorrow, lots of sunshine, temperatures up into the mid-70s, and it's nice to have this break before the next rain chance moves in. Hey, I want to show you these photos if you haven't seen them already. National Weather Service has done their survey of the area in the Morgan-Monroe State Forest. These pictures via Tracy Richardson. Look at the path of the tornado as it moved through the forest. Now, the National Weather Service was out here surveying today. What they found is that they surveyed about 15 miles of the tornado path, and then they got to the Morgan-Monroe State Forest entrance, and they couldn't go much further. All the trees were blocking the way, so they're going to have to rely on some drone footage as well as some satellite imagery to see how long this path length actually was once it got past the Morgan-Monroe State Forest. Now, they do have some preliminary information. They're declaring that an EF2 is what went through the northern part of Monroe County, including Owen County. 130-mile-per-hour winds with that tornado was on the ground at least, because they still have to add more, 15 miles. And get this, it was a half a mile wide at its widest point. A half a mile wide. The other two tornadoes, EF1s, thankfully some dry conditions before the rain returns. I'll show you when that happens coming up.
All right, Rob, we're checking in just a few minutes. You saw him show those drone images over the state forest. Just pretty incredible. And we've got more to show you. Homes just torn apart, flash flooding, uprooted trees and blocked roads, you name it. It was a mess statewide. 24 hours after those intense storms swept over central Indiana, there's a lot to pick up and rebuild. Indiana DNR had to actually close the Morgan Monroe State Forest because trees were split in half and blocking the entrance. Bad news for frequent visitors. DNR does expect the forest to stay closed for days or even weeks.
Devastated. I spent a lot of time here. It's devastating to see it look like this.
Now, in the small town of Gosport in Owen County, a tornado blew a mobile home off its foundation. Inside that home, a woman was taking shelter in her bathtub. A neighbor told us the storm threw the woman 30 feet, breaking her ankle. Luckily, no more serious than that. The neighbor was actually able to clear some trees, so first responders had a path to get to her.
Last night when we were coming through, just looking for damage, every time there was a lightning bolt, it looked like a war zone. There was nothing left. Like it was just all the trees were snapped in half. There was stuff everywhere. Looked identical to a war zone.
Crews were out all day across Indiana, cutting down trees and restoring fallen power lines. Thankfully, no reports of any serious injuries or deaths tonight. Also tonight, a man is in critical condition after a shooting on the Near East Side of Indianapolis. Take a look. This was the scene around 8 o'clock near East Washington Street and Rural Street. We're working now to learn what may have led up to the gunfire and if police have identified a possible suspect. If you have information that could possibly help police, you're asked to call IMPD or Crime Stoppers. You don't even have to give your name. Tonight, Governor Mike Braun is calling the newly approved AES Indiana rate hike unacceptable. The governor has been a vocal opponent of the utility company's request, but the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission signed off on the plan yesterday. That's despite pushback from the state's highest office. The IURC approved an additional $71 million over 2 years. Now that prompted Governor Braun to post on social media saying, "I'm calling on the Office of Utility Consumer Counselor to petition for a reconsideration and rehearing of this case. My priority is improving affordability for Hoosiers." According to AES, for a typical customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, it will amount to less than $5 per month per phase. This first rate increase comes in July, so that's coming up for your bill. That second one is going to go into effect at the start of 2027. Well, tonight we're hearing from a third Democrat who's vying to become the next mayor of Indianapolis. David Bride may not have the name recognition of his primary competitors, but he says he's got the chops. He's a DPW administrator and longtime city worker. And tonight he's talking one-on-one with our Alex Almanza.
David Bride announced his bid for Indy's top job in April. He says his campaign for mayor starts where his city career began, on the back of a trash truck nearly 2 decades ago.
A Marine Corps veteran, Bride now works in city operations and says that background gives him a different view of what the city needs. He says his top priorities are public safety, infrastructure, homelessness, and affordable housing. How to address those? Bride didn't give specifics.
For any of those, is there a specific plan that you have kind of already in mind?
I got a couple. I can't really give all the details about. I'm big on mentoring too. So these young people, I'm big on mentoring. I was talking to some different organizations, some different city organizations, and I'm kind of one of them people that just like to, if it's a problem, let's solve it.
Bride also talked about the current legal system and how some argue it's too lenient on violent criminals. He says the prosecutor is doing a, quote, good job, but says the judges should hand out heftier sentences.
But do you feel like the prosecutor could at least, are there any improvements that you feel like he could make?
I think what he's trying to do is have a balance. He's trying to do the best job he can. We ought to be praying for him and everybody else that's making decisions.
On data centers, Bride says he'd back a pause on new developments and believes most residents don't want them. But he argues the state has already stacked the deck so heavily in favor of projects that local leaders can't truly stop them.
They're working with AES. I've already heard them talking about building brand new transformers and doing all that. So if you're talking like that, then it's a done deal. It's just like That's the political part.
Bride joins former City County Council President Vop Osili and State Senator Andrea Hunley in the Democratic primary field.
Bride also mentioned the importance of voter participation, saying that even if people don't vote for him, he wants more people to get out to the polls. You can watch our extended interview right now at WTHR.com. In Indianapolis, Alex Almanza, 13 News.
Alex also sat down with Councilor Osili and Senator Hunley. You can see those interviews on demand on our free WTHR streaming app.